The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now...
It's Anoa and Brandon, and this is the Benjamin Dixon Show. How are you guys doing this evening? Apologies for the late start, but OBS kept crashing and not cooperating. Like, they definitely trying to keep us from talking to you tonight. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing all right, even despite efforts by, I don't know, Trump. Who's trying to shut us down tonight? Is it Trump?
I don't know who's trying to shut down. I don't know if it's the Kremlin. I don't know if it's the crazy fake bot people on Twitter. Like, I have no clue who's trying to shut us down. But like, we can't be stopped. Like, here we are.
We can't stop, won't stop. Bad boys for life.
We are here filling in for the fabulous Benjamin Dixon. Ben had some other things that he had to take care of and needed us to come and pitch hit. And here we are, even though New Edition is on tonight and I'm totally missing it. This is like the once in a lifetime opportunity for me to actually break for my BET boycott and watch BET programming, because I don't believe in BET ordinarily. But yeah.
You don't believe in it. It's not leprechauns. I mean, it exists.
No, I don't believe in BET. Like, it doesn't exist.
Well, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the sequel, Poison, the Belle Biv DeVoe story. So,
but I mean, you know, for I know this has nothing to do with politics or news, but to me, it's exciting. You know, I grew up on New Edition. It's a 3-night series. Like, I'm really excited for the New Edition story to be told, and I remember being a kid at Harlem Week in New York and getting almost trampled by teenage girls in the 80s because they were so excited to see Bobby Brown perform at Harlem Week. I remember we were out there and it was great. You know, Harlem Week was concerts and, you know, festival, all types of wonderful stuff. And I remember my friend's mom, she pressed us all up against the wall because there was like really like a stampede of girls who went to go rush the stage. So yeah. So yeah, so much going on today. So that was a complete little side note. So much going on. It's good to be here with you guys back home in Atlanta, back from DC. DC was wild. Really wild. One thing I will say, and I have a series of interviews that'll be posted soon with vignettes and perspectives from different women and some men who either participated in one of the marches or chose not to for whatever reasons. But I really do think that, just to take a moment about DC, like being on the ground, one thing that really bothered me was the framing of the resistance as beginning on Saturday, right? With the culmination of the women's march or the sister marches. From a really just most basic standpoint, that was a really great, you know, effort, you know, and coordination. You know, there were 600 plus marches organized worldwide. That's pretty impressive. Shout out to Terry and Cece and some of the other women who helped coordinate the sister marches. I know quite a few of them and even got to speak on one of their phone calls to talk about community engagement along with Cori Bush. But really, I mean, there's been a lot of activity. There was a whole week of actions and resistance from Disrupt J20, from Answer Coalition, from Black Lives Matter and Movement for Black Lives affiliated groups. There's been so much going on. And so a lot of the criticism that exists around the Women's March, like the National DC March in general, I think extends to this whole way that mainstream organizations, the Democrats and the media approach this idea of resistance and fighting the good fight, so to speak. It is very focused on establishment approved actions and activities, and it really overlooks the real work, advocacy and organizing being done on a regular basis. Like, again, the day before, you had disrupted J20 actions happening from first thing in the morning on over. And when you're talking about like real actual resistance, putting it on the line, like, you know, the different blocks, the different blockades and stuff led by various groups, Code Pink out in the street. I mean, Black Lives Matter activists, labor activists, so much was going on Friday, and that really got overshadowed by a couple of different events that were only a small fraction of what actually happened. Shout out to Occupy inauguration. Sorry, Brandon, but really some great work that was done. They got overlooked. Go ahead, Brandon.
But I mean, that's the word of the day, erasure, right? And that's been the word of the day for a long time. The Women's March, in a lot of ways, was establishment stamp of approval march that most easily can be co-opted by the Democratic Party and the liberal media as being, the approved resistance. Like that's what the Women's March is. Like, it's the establishment approved proper way to resist. Just like MSNBC is the proper channel it's the proper news source to resist with. And in a lot of ways, that's very problematic, right? So as part of the real resistance, right, the people who exist actually on the fringes of the status quo and are resisting that status quo, resisting that struggle in place, not simply just Trump himself, it becomes us to, also resist this narrative, right? That the Democrats are the one legitimate form, the one legitimate path to resistance, because that's really what they're trying to establish now, right? With Debbie Wasserman Schultz getting out there with her stage photos and Cory Bush getting out there with his pink scarf and his stage photos. They're trying to position themselves as literally, we are the only way. We're all standing between you and Trump, and they've done that before too. That was their campaign slogan during the general election. We are what stands between you and Trump, and so you got to get behind us. And that's that's still their message going forth. Like, we are the one legitimate path to resistance. And for progressives, we have to, part of our struggle with the establishment is going to be literally wresting control over not just the term resistance, but the definition of leftists from the Democrats, because right now they have the monopoly on it. They have the monopoly on what constitutes resistance. They have the monopoly on what constitutes what it means to be on the left, and they have bastardized those terms. And the Women's March, although I'm not here to cajole any of the rank and file people who this was their first march. Trump ignited their spirit in them, and that's wonderfully okay. But the issue becomes, the Democrats are not really the solution to Trump. They are just an alternative way to, all right, they're just, they're just a slightly worse alternative. Like we need to talk about solutions, not less bad problems right now. And
Agreed. I think that's absolutely right. And I really do think that, there are so many think pieces that are already coming out about the different issues with the Women's March. And again, like I've said to so many people already, I do have my thoughts. And I still have another piece in front of it that I did not get finished still yet. But I do think that we need to continue to discuss these issues. We do need to call out false narratives. I can, criticize or offer critique of the march, but at the same time offer criticism and critique of the way, for example, that Linda Sarsour has been, treated and railroaded by people from multiple fronts who are just upset about various things. Like, and it's not about, and again, like people get into the, respectability politics. It's not about respectability. Like, there's just a lack of decency and respect for people and what they do. I don't have to agree with you to respect you, right? And no, I'm not about to lecture people about how you should have punched Nazis. I say punch Nazis. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not politically correct, but like,
you have to punch someone.
Nazis,
probably be a Nazi.
But like, seriously though, maybe somebody need to learn there's consequences. You can't. This is the new meaning of fighting words, right? Like, you just can't run around saying do whatever you want. But go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's the really frustrating thing about punching Nazis, right? Now, because the Nazi's a hipster and kind of cute and looks a little bit like Crispin Glover, back when he was younger.
He looks like an Abercrombie model, like, because Michael Salomon and I were literally standing on the corner, and we did not know who that was when we looked. We just saw him from the side. We had no clue who it was. He's
just some traditionally attractive white dude, and and because of that, even though he's espousing Nazi, not even espousing Nazism, for lack of a better word, people think that we have to give him the benefit of the doubt, and we have to relitigate and have a new conversation about Nazism in the public square because, well, like this cute guy is saying it, right? Like, it's like this cute, this traditionally attractive white guy saying it. So we have, listen, we have enough problems that we haven't addressed yet that we don't need to go back and talk about Nazism again and give it the benefit of that. Like, well, if he's saying it, and you have Sarah Silverman out there. You have Sarah Silverman. I hate to play it, but
she's a joke. But go ahead.
Richard Spencer is a Nazi, and he should be treated as such. not treated like with the bit. But here in this mentality right here, not directly, but the structure of the mentality, which is why rape culture is so prevalent, right? That people deserve the benefit of the doubt, even if they're doing horrible things, even if they're accused of and actively proven to be a horrible person. Well, we don't, white, like he's classically attractive. He's well spoken. He speaks reasonably. He's part of this sort of cult of logic. So we got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like let's. Well,
that's like it was Mother Jones. Mother Jones did a profile on him, right? And they framed him in that
it's like a 17 magazine, and he's Justin Bieber. They're doing profiles on him. Like, are you serious? Right. He's a teen heartthrob Nazi. Like, this is nonsense.
I know this is totally off topic and not our usual commentary, but what the hell is the deal with these good-looking Nazis and white supremacists, right? Like, because even like the Shia LaBeouf video, which I still think is staged. I know everyone's like, "Wow, look at this activism." I still kind of think the video of him yelling in the Nazis' face is a staged piece of performance art. But that's just me. So even that dude, right? That dude looks like very straight laced, like he's like nerdy, attractive, like Spider-Man, right? And it's just like, I'm just so confused. Like where the hell did these well-dressed hate mongers come from?
I think it's that idea, right? That's one of the ideas that the Democrats have been pushing for a long time. That if you that the real racists out there are the ones who the buck-toothed hillbillies, like living in Appalachia, when those people tend to not be. Their racism is a bit different, right? But like the most problematic racism, the most virulent, exists in the pretty people, as the undercurrent of the decisions that they make in their life. And we're just now seeing that with these people come out there, and you would expect people to be smarter, not just, not Republicans, but I guess on the left, you would expect people to be smarter and go, okay, well, no matter how cute he is, no matter how hipster his haircut is, he got the shaved sides, no matter how much what he's saying has a semblance of sound like it makes sense, he's still just a Nazi. Like Hitler sounded like he made sense too. They're still just Nazis, and we cannot entertain that Nazism. But that's the height of entitlement. That's the height of privilege, not just white privilege or male privilege. That's the height of privilege in general. The notion that no matter what you espouse, no matter what comes out of your mouth, whether it's creationism or intelligent design or Nazism or some bastardization of neoliberalism or classical liberalism. Even if we've already litigated it, we have to relitigate it because it came out of your mouth. And since it came out of your mouth and your privilege, it must have value. And don't get me wrong, I want them to feel comfortable saying it in the public square so we can all laugh at them. But people aren't laughing at them. What they're doing is they're treating it like, oh, well, I never thought of this. I never thought of Nazism this way. Have you read Habermas? Have you read Arond? What can I remember his name? This is nonsense. It's true that you should try to win their hearts and minds with discussions, but no, you should social sanctions. You should laugh at them. They should be embarrassed to be Nazis, and that's how you change things over generation. You don't change you can't reason people out of being ideologues. What you do is you embarrass them. Maybe not with physical violence, but you laugh at them. You go, ha ha! Look at this dinosaur. He still thinks that race is biological. Ha 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 ha! And we move on. But whatever. Let's get to the topics for tonight. We've gotten way off track.
Yeah, we have gotten way off track. I just want to just to wrap up the DC stuff just real quickly. So I think we're up to, I think it's 4 now. Several journalists were arrested during coverage of the unrest on Friday, and they've been charged with felony rioting, which carries a jail term up to 10 years, I believe, and a fine of like $25,000 for just merely coverage. And the National Lawyers Guild, which I need to go ahead and submit my stuff to join, stated that the Washington, D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department has they indiscriminately target people for arrest en masse based on location alone. And if anyone heard Ben and I on Eugene Puryear's show on Friday afternoon, like as we were on air, this was happening in process. They were beginning the process of kettling people into a particular area. So, like things would happen and people would get drawn into like the area, and then the police would surround and basically cordon it off and trap people and then just arrest everyone en masse. So, while there may have been things going on that were allegedly illegal that gave police the right to arrest people, that's up for interpretation or not. But to arrest, identified journalists who are there just providing coverage, that opens up a whole nother conversation about constitutional rights, about the First Amendment, and about the freedom of the press and the ability to actually provide real-time updated information and news on what's going on the ground. So that's something that we definitely need to keep more eye on. And considering this administration and this president's interesting relationship with news media, that isn't, I mean, I saw that with the CIA press conference, he had his own was it his own laugh machine? He basically had his own live studio. He had his own recorded studio audience brought in for him. So we're in for a lot of real interesting times ahead. So we can get on to the topics for the night. But I just found that was just an article I had seen from earlier that I thought was just really interesting in The Guardian. So what's on our schedule for tonight, Brandon?
Well, first we have to talk about the confirmation hearings for Trump's League of Extraordinary Douchebags, and. So,
League of Extraordinary Douchebags. Who's up first?
Yeah, that's it. Let's start with Mike Pompeo because he's delightfully crazy.
He's delightfully crazy. All right.
The thing about Mike Pompeo is that he's a religious Christian zealot, and he is at least close personal acquaintances with Frank Gaffney, the transition chief, the member of the transition team of Trump's cabinet, or rather Trump's administration. And Frank Gaffney is so right. So like here, so there's a great piece in Salon by Digby about Mike Pompeo and his ties to Frank Gaffney, who Gaffney himself is a radical Islamophobe, radical Christian zealot, but he is insanely right wing. So Frank Gaffney thinks that Grover Norquist is a sleeper agent of the Muslim Brotherhood, and he was sent to infiltrate the NRA. He was also banned from CPAC. He was banned from CPAC because he accused the inner leadership of CPAC of also being sleeper agents for Islamist groups.
What?
Yes. And this is the guy who once called Mike Pompeo one of the smartest people he knew. Is not equally problematic, but he has showed similar viewpoints. He says that radical Islamists are infiltrating our small town, and he has supported torture in the past.
Well, there's nothing wrong. What's wrong with a little bit of torture between friends, right? I mean,
if her was consenting to it, nothing, right? But no. But so like, and this is the sticking point for a lot of people. So what they say, so. In front of the hearings, he said specifically that, well, I would never go against the law in my position as CIA head of CIA. However, when talking about the Bush administration's torture, he is quoted as saying, well, whatever they did was legal because they were not brought up on charges. If it were illegal, they would have been prosecuted under the law. And those people who were doing the quote unquote enhanced interrogation were patriots. So basically he, has framed this question of torture as, well, as long as it's not illegal because it was not prosecuted and they're not torturers, they're patriots. And how dare you question them because they're fighting this holy war with, Islamists. And I mean, from that position, I think that he really lays out why it's so problematic that President Obama did not, right? That it sort of gives this kind of precedent out there that, well, if it were actually illegal, the Democratic president would have prosecuted based on it, and it gives this sort of not. No, go ahead.
Now, so say what does it say? So we've laid this out. You've laid this out pretty well about Pompeo. What does this say that high rank that various Democrats, including the very progressive leader of the revolution, Chuck Schumer, voted for him, right? Like voted to go ahead for his confirmation.
I mean, I don't know. So I've heard based on it. Tim Kaine also voted for him. And a lot of this is really just that the Senate hearings and I feel as we will see as basically everyone gets confirmed, right? So I think that there is basically very little chance that the majority, if not the entirety of Trump's cabinet picks will be confirmed. These Senate committees are indicative of a trend especially within the Democratic Party, of this performative progressivism, right? They come out at these hearings and they lambast these people. They drag them in front of like the media. They ask them these like embarrassing questions about grizzly bears and guns in classrooms, and then they confirm. Them.
I mean, but she did actually answer, and she shouldn't have. Like,
she should have answered. Mike Pompeo is also in favor of expanding the surveillance state, and it's just these things. And you have Chuck Schumer, and you have Chuck Schumer, the war hawk, but they have these things, and it reveals Democrats for what they are, which is they're trying to create enemies, right? Is like I feel like that's what's going on right now. Like they're saying, I look forward to fighting with you for 8 years. I look forward to, guaranteeing my seat by continuing to oppose you, even as you get everything you want through.
Right.
And like we see this a lot, right? And I mean, the biggest, I don't want to, drag Elizabeth Warren out too early, but Elizabeth Warren is known for doing this with members of the bank community. She's known for bringing them in front of these committees, having these big explosive events where everyone gets behind her, and then nothing ever occurs. Like Wells Fargo, like nothing happens.
Yeah, I mean, like I everyone's talking about the resistance and this, that, and the other, and call and object and all this other stuff. But like, what point does any of that make if the senators are just going, the senators who we're supposed to be relying upon are just going to go ahead and just fold anyway? Like to read senators saying things like, well, I don't really agree with him, but, or I think he doesn't understand the legal precedent of this, but. You're saying that the potential head of the CIA does not understand the legal precepts involved with deciding or making determinations about whether they can compile dossiers and other information about American citizens, but we're going to go ahead and make him the head of the CIA anyway? That doesn't make any sense. Just like, I mean, we'll get to Ben Carson, but I don't know what Democrats are doing, but this being nice and giving Republicans their way and letting things play as they may, that is a very dangerous gamble that has yet to yield results. They've done this time and time again over the last several years, and it doesn't yield results. It leaves us in a situation where we have a Congress, House and Senate, that is predominantly run by Republicans. Republicans in a House can pass through whatever types of nonsense and crap they want to, for the most part, without really real opposition for the Democrats. And because of rule changes by Harry Reid, the Senate can do the same thing essentially. So I'm not very clear on what's going on, and why. I'm not that I'm not clear. It's just that, this beating our head on the wall and trying to, get Democrats to do the right thing and trying to infiltrate and take things over, like it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, you do need people in these seats who can actually be in a position to ask these questions and to challenge these candidates. For these cabinet level positions, right? But on the flip side, what does it matter when it seems like the party line seems to be, okay, we're going to put up a good show at a fight, but we're not really going to fight for real? Like, doesn't make
a lot of sense. But there's a lot of ways to look at it, right? So the first way, the way I laid out before, which is that they're trying to create their own enemies. That the Democratic Party, Senate, House, at varying degrees, is not very progressive, not very on the left. And so they create their own enemies the same way the Clinton campaign tried to get these Pied Piper candidates, so that they can make themselves seem more progressive. They can create a more evil threat out there to coalesce, their base, coalesce their voting bloc around and get continued support. Because without your Frank Gaffneys, without your Mike Pompeos, without your your Prices, your Elaine Chow's, your DeVoses, without these people, the Democratic Party, from an objective standpoint, looks incredibly conservative. So they need to elevate these right-wing voices so that by comparison, they can seem to the left. They can have someone to be to the left too. What that ends up doing is that it constantly shifts off over that Overton window, right? It just does that by necessity. The other way to look at it is this. Well, I mean, every way makes them look stupid, but always this. The Democratic Party at its highest levels, and also, on the baseline, some of the baseline, liberals, they think that they view compromise as inherently virtuous. That just the nature of compromising and coming to a conclusion that seems reasonable and letting people sort of have their way, even after they go through this rigmarole, is the compromise in all of its forms, no matter what, it's always virtuous. And like finally, I would say there's this mentality that you can hold people's feet to the fire after they're in position. And that was what they were promoting throughout the general election too. Vote for Clinton, hold their feet to the fire after. So there is this sort of notion that, well, we'll hold these people's feet to the fire. Well, he's in favor of torture. And if he try, we're gonna, install him. And if he tries to torture people, then we'll stop him. It's like, well, why not stop him now? Why not stop him here? And the answer seems to be, well, because that's not really political. Like, abstinence is not mature, and we don't want to seem immature by being obstinate. Right. So we're going to compromise so we seem mature, even if that compromise involves basically installing a torturer, or rather, quote unquote, patriot. And no matter how you view it, they're disingenuous. The Democratic Party is duplicitous, right? They come out with these big shows of like, oh, look how progressive we are. Grizzly bears, and Cory Booker wears pink scarves, and, Wall Street's bad, kind of sometimes, and we're going to have half, X, Y, and Z. And but then they don't do anything.
Absolutely. I mean, we're they send letters and they they try
and it helps them raise money too.
Right, it does. I need to probably actually go back on the fundraising list just so I can have them to laugh and talk about, because I remember seeing while we were in DC, people were talking about the horrible DNC fundraising emails they were getting, and I'm like, oh man, someone needs to screenshot it for me, because I'm not on I removed myself from all those lists and stuff. But yeah, so it's like, let's move on to Ben Carson. Of course, obviously, Ben Carson got voted out of committee. That means that he's moving on to a full Senate vote. Elizabeth Warren, Sherrod Brown, Sherrod Brown said that he's going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's made some comments about being committed to dealing with lead in public housing. That's all it takes. He's going to deal with lead in public housing. Like, how the hell is he going to do that? Like, what's he going to do that's not already being done?
He spouted a lot more platitudes than that. He also talked about, getting rid of disparities in in housing between, people of color and white people. Like he said all the right words. So and I think it's unfair of you, Anoa, to judge him based on the things he was saying 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago and not give him another chance.
The fact that a neurosurgeon had someone write him statements to say the right thing when he absolutely has no freaking clue about urban affairs, policy, housing, or anything. I mean, I don't think he has a perspective. He has no basis of knowledge or understanding for this position. If this is a position like that's just, I mean, there should be some requirement, and which is a slap in the face to people who are probably like career HUD employees, who are probably the real people who run the organization, the entity or whatever, that, somebody like this is like the epitome of somebody getting that job that you've been like working your butt off with your company, and they have no experience whatsoever, which is true. He has no experience. Sure, he's been a neurosurgeon for however many years, but like, I mean, how the hell is he going to address fair housing, homelessness, et cetera, et cetera? He literally has no clue what the hell's going on in this realm. Like, none. And for, Elizabeth Warren and Sherrod Brown and others to be like, well, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. We're going to hold his feet to the fire. He said, he said this, and we're going to take him at his word. Like you said, but when we were first starting, before we came on, like, this seems like to be the parade of crazies. And as long as they're less crazier than what's his face, than Trump, as long as they say some of the right magical words, then we're okay.
And see, that's one of the real dangers of Trump, right? Not just with his cabinet, but with the entire American politosphere, for lack of that's an awful term I just invented, probably. That Trump is not a metric for bad. Like, not even the metric for we've gone too far. Oh my God, we've done it. We've finally done it. Like, this is insane. He's now the metric for just, okay, well, he constitutes bad. And so we talk about, let's move on I transition into talking about Kelly, the new head of the Homeland Security, who is also incredibly radical, that people feel like people like Kelly are the moderates, and they are willing to install people like Kelly, because Kelly was confirmed that on Friday at 88 to 11, and from a Senate vote, that he's a moderating force. Now, this is the same Kelly who was, in charge of Guantanamo Bay, who resisted its closure when President Obama was, quote unquote, trying to, close Guantanamo Bay. He resisted their closure. He put a media blackout on Guantanamo Bay when they were persisting in torture, and by torture I mean when they were force feeding prisoners who were on a hunger strike, which the UN describes as torture, and that's similar to waterboarding. This is the same drug warrior that feels like the drug war in Latin America, which kills hundreds of thousands of people a year, is not effective enough because it doesn't have enough money. And so these people are the moderates that the Democrats in the Senate are turning towards to save them from Trump. And we see this dynamic playing out all over the place, where you have people saying, oh, well, Mike Pompeo and John Kelly, they speak. This is respectability politics playing out again, right? They speak well. Right. They don't say crazy things. They're not on Twitter calling the CIA Nazis, so they will help moderate Trump. And it's like, no, like, I'm sorry, sweetie. They are not moderate by any metric that a real person would use. They are simply not as bad. They have more media training.
Right.
They're just politicians. They're politicians in general, and they're used to speaking in front of Senate committees and Senate hearings. And you see that when when the discrepancy between people like them and people like DeVos, where they lack that training, but they're just as crazy.
Well, they also probably have better people. They probably have better people on their team, because we're also like these admonitions, these promises are being made in written, responses, right? Like, anybody can put anything in writing. That isn't, we should run it through a plagiarism check. Like, anyone can write anything and say anything when it's a letter. They can have help with it, like all types of stuff. But it was just interesting because he just this is just like you said, they'll sit there because he was someone, and I don't really think he didn't actually really get grilled, but there might be points where he clearly, did not agree or seem to understand or whatever, and they're just like, oh yeah, well, we're just gonna do our best. And that's just not, I don't think that's the way to do this. I mean, every person that's considered problematic on that list should be getting grilled, hammered away nonstop.
Well, this is not about, so I agree with you absolutely, but this is not about simply grilling them and demonstrating why they are inadequate or unfit for the position, not just from like an experience standpoint, but from we are trying to move the country in a more progressive direction. The drug war in Latin America has been a failure. We can't just simply turn to the president of the Philippines, whose name I can't pronounce, and say, well, his drug war is barbaric, but our drug war is great, even though it kills pretty much the same amount of people. But our drug war is fine, but his drug war is bad. It's not simply about grilling them in public, and that's what Democrats need to understand. That's what these public displays of progressivism don't actually change anything. They just make you feel better about the people who you're voting for, and they provide cover for when they fail to do anything because they're so public. Right. That when these things get pushed through in the background, they kind of go undetected. But you do remember when they were yelling these crazy things. They were like, you do remember when they were being grilled, and a lot of this has to do with a misunderstanding of how how these kind of confirmation hearings work, right? So I guess people think that John Kelly, I'm sorry, I keep saying John Kelly, that's not his name. That Kelly or Carson or Tillerson or that they have shame and that they're embarrassed by this. They do not. They don't, and if they are embarrassed, it goes away in a few weeks because they get the job anyway. Like imagine going to a job interview for a really important job, and the people at the interview laid out reason after reason for why you were unqualified and made you feel so bad. But at the end, they were just like, "Okay, we get the job anyway. Next week, look forward to working with you."
Exactly.
It'd be you would feel a little bit. You would be confused, obviously, but it's like, okay, well, hey, you'd feel better immediately because I got the job anyway. It's all a game. It's all theater. And I think that the people who are being grilled know they're going to get confirmed anyway. Right. So it's not that big of a deal for them either. So it's just everyone trying to build up their base, get their fundraising up, put up a brave front, and then, business as usual. We'll be getting confirmed.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm sorry, just real quick. Someone asked when DeVos was going to be confirmed. This Friday.
Yeah, I think it's this Friday. They were trying to delay her. They were trying to delay and have a second hearing, but I think they've refused the second hearing. And they're going ahead for her confirmation. That's really, like, we've talked about this before. Like, if there was one person that needed to not be confirmed, I'd have to agree that it would have to be her. She's just completely, like, Carson. I mean, at least he, I guess, said some nice things or whatever to make them feel good. But she's freaking bat crap crazy. Like, can't really have her in charge of the nation's schools. We won't have no damn schools. We'll have guns for grizzly bears, though. Guns for grizzly bears in Chicago.
That's like a great. Wait, no, hold on, wait. I guess that means we can bear arms. No, what you brought up earlier, like, he seems to be surrounding his cabinet with religious zealots for some reason, and I don't know what that's about. Like, his cabinet are like full of religious zealots, and it's like it's an odd, like, it's very odd. I don't know. All I would say is this: like, it based on his picks for Homeland Security, Attorney General, and Health and Human Services, it very much does seem as though Trump is getting ready to rehash the drug war, like to put the drug war back on. The drug war is back on. Sessions is vehemently anti-marijuana. Price is anti-marijuana. Kelly is anti-marijuana, and the head of the EPA is also, and I can't remember his name at this point. Is also anti-marijuana.
Are they? Speaking of the EPA, so Trump is barring scientists who work for the EPA and similar situated organizations from being able to share basically public information to update journalists, etc. There's so much so wrong going on right now. I don't really know what recourse off the top of my head is available, but I do know that whether you're a federal employee or if you're an employee that is covered by a union, you really need to get in touch with your union. You really need to understand more about what's going on and what can and cannot be done. He's the president, and through executive orders, I assume, again, not sure off the top of my head, would have to double check and see this out, that he can like supersede or suspend agreements between the federal unions and employee and employer. Not sure if that's true or not, but people, if you are covered by a union position or you're interested or in the process of starting a union, I mean, please make sure you do that so that you have an entity that's built in to protect your rights. Because there's so much going on right now with Donald Trump, with the way he's moving very, very quickly. It's concerning. It's very concerning.
The speed at which Trump is moving with all these things that people hate really does illustrate how inactive Obama was on certain issues. Like, it really does. And speaking of problematic, white men who they know the right words and language, Trudeau came out and cheered the fact that the Dakota Access Pipeline was just, approved, right? Like Trudeau, upon hearing Trudeau, who a lot of people on the left kind of champion because occasionally he's pretty good with refugees, and he uses the word male privilege like he means it. Upon finding out that President Trump had, oh God, it sounds so dirty when I say it, President Trump, and I say some dirty things, man. Upon finding out that President Trump signed the, this sort of pledge to get this done, like he was happy, like he came on and cheered it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like all of these leftist, quote unquote leftist politicians, they come out and they reveal themselves to be either in the pocket of some big corporation, like a la Cory Booker, who's in the pocket of every big corporation, really. He's never seen a corporate donor he isn't like. Or they come across as cowards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's just like, damn, phone lines are busy. I have so much to vent. Please take my call. I don't know that we're actually taking calls tonight, you guys. I don't know that we're set up to take calls because we were having some issues with OBS earlier. And if you guys have suggestions, if anyone knows much about tech and software stuff, if you guys have any suggestions for other programs and stuff for us, definitely shoot them over. But I know as Curtis on Twitter is trying to hit us up, and then And I don't. So we're not set up. I'm sorry, guys. We're not set up to take calls tonight. We are working on that to be able to be more consistent with taking calls. I sometimes take calls. I usually don't take calls as frequently as Ben does. But we're not in the studio with his setup, so we had a little trouble with the OBS too, so it just makes it difficult. So, but we'll try the next time Brandon and I are on. We'll try to do calls. Maybe I'll be able to do calls tomorrow. I'm not sure. I'll definitely, we'll get on that. But this is a great time to, thank all the patrons of the Benjamin Dixon Show, as well as the patrons of the Way of Anoa. This is part of why we need your support, right? So we continue to build up our technology capabilities and provide you like serious content. But Curtis, you can always hit one of us up. You can keep hitting me up on Twitter. You can hit us up via email. I'll definitely listen and read your vent or whatever. You can leave a message on my number as well. So yeah, I do listen to the messages when you guys leave them. I may not necessarily be able to get back to you because super busy, but if you need a vent, you can at least call the other number, 678-810-0089, I think is the number. But yeah. And then Curtis said, not weed, anything, please, just not weed. Yeah. I mean, it just seems like the chopping block is up. I mean, they're allegedly, Trump is going to release an executive order on immigration. He's already released executive orders, like you were saying, Brennan, reinstating Keystone as well as Dakota Access Pipeline. I mean, it kind of frustrates me with the no DAPL stuff because the Obama administration could have acted. I mean, just thinking that had the Obama administration acted back in the spring, right, or summer when this first became an issue, there were several months to have moved this along in a completely different process, right? And now at this point, I mean, maybe it wouldn't have made no difference. Maybe Trump would still do the same thing all along, but just it's just frustrating because had the administration, had the candidate that they were pushing actually came out more forcefully against no DAPL, not saying that this necessarily would have made it all better completely, but at the same time, it would have been a long way because you have a lot of people, not just in North Dakota, but throughout that entire region that are against the pipeline for various reasons. You have homeowners in Iowa who've had, property seized who are trying to force and beat it back. So that was just something I thought about. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it's a two-pronged thing that Obama had a problem with two things. A, actually getting these policies done, and B, being a vocal advocate for them. So yeah, maybe the things that he did, such as the ACA, maybe they would have gotten repealed anyway. But there's a woeful lack of information out there for people. People are just uninformed about this. To the point where people don't know difference between people think there's difference between the ACA and Obamacare, and so his measures don't ever go far enough. He always gives out these sort of lukewarm measures along with lukewarm endorsements of his own measures. So he does both. So they're not strong. He's not strong in word or in action when it comes to these sort of things.
Right.
And so it makes it very easy. It makes it very easy to get rid of them and very hard to defend them. And I said a few weeks ago, imagine if we were trying to defend single payer right now. Imagine how easy it would be to defend single payer or to defend Medicare for all or a public option, because people wouldn't be seeing these increases in premium right now. Or even if he had put a cap, right? Even if the ACA had called for a cap,
right?
It'd be much easier to defend. But what it was a handout to corporations that yes, it's a net boon for the lives of many millions of people, but it's hard to defend as on the ground, especially since he didn't bother to defend it as much on the ground. Instead of coming out to advocate for his own policy as it was being torn down, instead, one of his last things in office was to come out and lambast people who were trying to get single payer. He retroactively called them. He retroactively called the people who were in 2009 and 10 were saying, "Hey, single payer is better. Single payer is better. No half measure. Single payer better." The Bernie Sanders left are what ruined the ACA. It's no, the ACA was ruined to begin with because it was a neoliberal corporate handout. That's what ruined the ACA, and you couldn't even come out as a strong proponent of your own bill because it was so weak to begin with. And so hey. If you had either given a single payer or if you had come out strongly for Obamacare, the thing that named after you, it'd be so much easier to defend because it would be people would know what it is. But people don't know what it is. And I can only, and part of it is his fault. And it's.
All right, I don't know if that's me or if that's Brandon, but I agree. Like, we have Democrats right now making concessions. I mean, not just right now. We've seen this happening, right? Democrats for a long time now, for decades at this point, legislate and do lawmaking from a position of let's offer this so that Republicans can at least get some concessions. But when you start from a really basic point, and then you're not even putting like your best or strongest thing on the table, when you're already weakening your stuff to appease the other side. And then suddenly you think somehow that they're going to be good enough. No, if you're a mark, they're going to take you for a mark. They're going to steamroll right over you and do what needs to be done. So, Anoa, the Democrats suck. The Republicans are evil. What do we do? Brace yourself.
That's the most succinct. That is the most succinct description of American political system I've ever heard. The Democrats suck and the Republicans are evil. What do we do?
Brace yourself, because we gotta dig in, right? So
we fight both of them. We fight both of them. If the Democrats are an enemy, they're an obstacle. That needs to be overcome.
Absolutely.
The right is an enemy. The Democrats are an obstacle to defeating them. And
it's like you hear people say not all Democrats. No, but what it is there's a system that's in place that keeps Democrats making these same stupid decisions. There are a lot of people that I still admire very much, despite the very dumb things that they've done over the past year. However, we have a system, we have a party system that allows them to do things the way they're doing them, that actually, rewards. Like we were talking about in one of our threads earlier, all of us from the team, we talk pretty regularly throughout the day to kind of like just, discuss things that are going on and work on strategy, things like that. Right. So like, and we just shoot the stuff and talk about random things, like the fact that we're missing New Edition to cover the show for Ben tonight. But no, seriously. One of the things we were talking about earlier, did I lose my point? I might have lost my point. But anyway, like Democrats, we have all these different opportunities and groups forming that want to, primary Democrats and run things and do stuff, which is great, do you. But at some point, we have to stop saying it's too hard to run an independent candidate or it's too hard to run a third party candidate and actually put our time and effort. And this is the argument that Nick makes a lot that I just roll my eyes at him about. But seriously, when we're talking about local level candidates, we're talking about, city council positions, things like that. What does it take for you to run as an independent or to help someone else run as an independent? How many thousands of signatures? What we've learned so much that we can do, because that's how we start building out, it's already there, right? Like, no, we're not going to suddenly have a successful independent, presidential candidate in 2020. Like, unless it's someone that already is able to ride the Bernie wave and has a lot of money, because let's be real, to be able to compete and on the ground and on TV, they're going to need money to be able to buy their own airtime. I know we don't like big money and a lot of money, but we got to really start thinking strategically and thinking smart about what it takes to operate outside this system that we say we don't like. We don't like it. We're against it. We want it gone. That's fine. What are we replacing with? It's the same thing we keep saying to the Republicans about the ACA, public finance elections. Okay, what does that look like and how do we get there now, considering the system we have in place and considering who's in charge? That's not going to suddenly happen. That's not going to suddenly happen just because we're saying it has to happen and this other stuff is bad. And no, I'm not saying that you should take the big money because it's hard otherwise. What I'm saying is we have to be active, willing, and ready to make sure that whatever we're saying is an alternative, we can fund it. Because if we're telling people they have to walk away from XYZ money, then we need to have another alternative source for them. We can't just be saying you need to stop taking this because blah, blah, blah. No one's ever going to be able to compete without another source. So we have to help people find another source. Either we have to be the source as we were for Bernie, or we have to help find other sources, other, verified, vetted sources for grants and donations and things like that. Like we have to have a really good, solid plan put forth for people instead of just throwing them out there saying, don't do this, but, we don't have any other options for you. because that's the blueprint that the Democratic Party is going to give people. That's what they're going to tell people. That's how they discourage people from running. Like if they don't got enough money, it's like putting out. It's like getting a conventional home loan and putting down 20% on $300,000 house. You shit out of luck without an FHA loan. Like you not. Most people aren't going to be able to. Most people can't put down 20% on any house unless it's some really cheap little shack that you're going to bulldoze anyway, right? So it's the same type of thing in terms of when we look at running people for offices, we have to be really clear with what we're doing, how we're doing it, and where the money is going to come from. Because we can't just say no dark money. We can't just say, don't take this money. We got to help provide candidates with the options and the framework. And we can do that because many of you have been active and engaged and involved so much over the past 18 months to 2 years, making it happen in the most amazing way possible that you can leverage that work. Don't sit around waiting for some big name org or whomever to come to you with a plan, right? You know who's good on your local level. You know at the state level, at your city council level, you know better than everybody else. Let all these other people fight over who's going to win at these congressional districts and levels. Not that that's not important, but if everyone's focusing on the same exact thing in the same exact space, we're not going to really get that much done. And you're going to end up with a lot of people working against each other when they should be working together. Go ahead, Brendan.
The thing is, like, we have to work with the Democratic Party, not within it. And I think that's the key distinction that we have to make right now, is that the goal should be to work with them, not within them, because that's part of their game, right? They want to have a stranglehold on the government insofar as they create a series of criteria, money, experience, et cetera, that you need to be a viable candidate. And if you don't have those things, they want to paint you as not viable. You can't do it. You're not part of a party. How could you possibly? And it just so happens that the only way to get those experiments is to work within their system. But the price for working within their system is so high, and the compromises you have to make are so extensive that at the end you're unrecognizable from what you started out as, and that's the problem with winning. Like, people want that Democratic brand, and I don't know why. Like, at this point, I really don't know why. They keep drinking that Kool-Aid. The Democratic Party is still super viable just because they have a lot of money, and it needs to be the first thing we get rid of. That money equals viability. That at every level, because God knows, like you said, it helps. You have to have money to compete. But as we've seen with Hillary Clinton, having the most money really doesn't always help you win. And the reason why is because at a certain point, Democratic brand at certain levels is tainted. Like, their base does not like them anymore, and they keep doubling down on these same decisions because they feel as though the American is held hostage. They had Joyanne Reed host something the other day, right? The Democratic National Committee Forum. Well,
and they also we were talking about, you were talking about everybody's wrapped in their pink, and you got Cory Booker and everyone out there. Even DWS managed to find her crackhead self on the stage, but who was noticeably absent from the festivities and the powerful, stance this weekend? The people who claim to be our champions of progressivism, who want to run the party, because they were holed up in some little secluded retreat with David Brock and a bunch of the rich folk, pitching to not the people, pitching to the donors, because they're really the ones who are going to make these decisions.
Maybe you can help me with this, because that's something I've been thinking about for like a while now. The Democratic establishment is so jealous of the Republican Party. Like for some reason, the Democratic establishment, your David Brocks, your Hillary Clinton, like these people, they're so jealous of the Republican establishment. And so they do everything they can to avoid having to appeal to their base in any real way. The same with the third with Democrats being given $20 million to figure out, like, why did we lose? What's wrong? Because they're not really trying to figure out why did the Democrats lose, because that's a very easy question to answer. I could answer that for like literally $20 in lunch, But the real question you're asking is, how can we win without sacrificing our conservative neoliberal agenda? And I just feel as though the Democratic Party at its the highest level, the establishment level, like they want what the Republicans have. Like they don't like the fact that their base wants them to do things that will not enrich them normally. And so they're trying to come up with all of these schemes That's what these are, right? The Democratic Party is coming up with all these like big schemes, these big events, these performative things. We're going to be hearing about the Women's March for the next 4 years, right? This Women's March is going to be exactly how Cory Booker defends himself as a viable candidate in 2020. Like we're going to see pictures of this for the next the next 24 years, because this is going to be the way the Democratic Party is going to establish themselves. That, we have energy behind us. We have energy behind us. See, we have energy behind us.
Yeah, it's go ahead, finish up so we can wrap up.
It's frustrating because they're not trying to figure out how they can win, because that's a very simple thing to answer, right? So I think that people who are out there saying, well, the Democratic Party is giving the third way, Think Progress, Third Way, all these other places lots of money to figure out how they can win is a lie. It's misunderstanding. They want to know how they can win but still be neoliberal.
I'm not even sure they're trying. They want to regain control. You're absolutely right, and still be neoliberal. Like they're not actually trying to really dig deep. They're not trying to really like be the champion for the people and stuff that we need. I really don't know. And we're gonna probably have to put a pin in this like right around here and pick this up another conversation. I don't really know who that champion for the people is other than the people ourselves. And honestly, when I talk about the Democratic Party and them not being, I'm never going to tell you guys who to vote for. I didn't do it during the primary, didn't do it during the general. I'm never going to tell you who to vote for. I'm never going to tell you who to support. But what I will say is to make sure your eyes are wide open. If there is a viable, is there a good Democratic candidate and you choose to support them, go right on ahead. You don't lose any points with me for that one. But I do suggest that we don't because I'm seeing some folks are like, well, we need unity and we just got to all get along. If unity and all getting along means I got to put up with your drunken abusive behavior, to use a very loose analogy, then that's not worth unity to me. I'm going to call it out. I'm going to call you on the rug for being an abusive, drunken partner, instead of just standing here taking it to smile in front of our friends so that everyone knows we're okay. We got to stop telling people that we just need to be united and be all one. We can't be fighting. Some things that we're fighting for. And quite honestly, right now, trying to figure out a path politically forward is absolutely worth fighting for. We can't just roll over into the Democratic machine once again because they haven't done anything to shake up, the vestiges of power.
Absolutely. That's the lesson, right? The Democratic Party cannot be allowed with this Women's March to position themselves as the only legitimate way to resist Trump, the only way to engage in leftist politics. They can't be allowed to do that. And from my perspective, any organization or group or movement that is only concerned with the Democratic establishment, or rather change Democratic Party, is a waste of a movement. The whole goal needs to be to destabilize the two-party system and move the Democrats to the left. Not if your organization is simply, well, how can we primary the right Democrats? I think that you're making a mistake, because working within that system is going to demand a lot of things from you that you might are going to be antithetical to what you're actually working towards. Because the Democratic Party, they control those primaries. They do, and one way or another, they control those primaries. And that requires you to play by their rules. And so it's incumbent upon people on the left to really understand what the cost for that is, and not simply just go, oh, well, they have this mechanism in place, they have this machine in place, let me just try to steal it from them. No, don't, trust me. It is the height of hubris to believe that everyone who has tried before you everyone loves it. Everyone who has tried before me is simply corrupt or stupid, and I'm just so pure and I'll be able to do it. And it's just no, you won't. And so maybe people have more faith in themselves than I do, but I'm nah, Democratic Party, it's they'll change me.
Well, it's when it's at the point where you are meeting with David Brock, when it's at the point when you're meeting, because everyone's freaking out about Soros and this stuff, but Soros gives money to a lot of, so basically everything pretty much on the left in one way or another, and that's not an excuse or justification, but it's real. If you want to get rid of Soros money, that's a whole lot of supplemental cash you need to start finding to fund other stuff that people do. I'm just putting it out there, but y'all don't focus nearly enough on David Brock and the way he's weaseling his ass through everything that's going on right now. That's the real present and very, very pending enemy right there. From corrupting. Yeah, go ahead.
But It's not David Brock though. For some reason, Democrats are like they are, and this is why the reason why they lose, right? They are just so comfortable with getting in bed with people whose ideals and professed ideals and whose past actions are antithetical to what they claim to believe in. Yeah. And they just don't understand that is not a boon. And you said it earlier, like this idea, it's not unity. It's reckless civility. Like the idea that
you're on a roll tonight. I like that one.
It's right. The Democratic Party is they don't demand unity. They demand that you be recklessly civil, not only with Republicans, but with them. And what they mean by that, when it comes to their bases, you have meet us. We're not going to give you 50%. We're not going to give you 25%. You're going to come over here, or we're going to give you, or we're going to like let the wolves loose on you. And at the door, you have to come over to us. And like I said earlier, it's like this notion that compromise all circumstances is in and of itself virtuous is a problem in our political machine, because compromise under all situations, civility is not always the best. It's not always a sign of maturity. And I've said this about Bernie Sanders. I was just like, when he decided to make a deal with a bunch of cheaters and scoundrels to not resist them and to campaign for them afterwards, he lost a bit of my respect, because that's not a mature thing to do. And a lot of people think it is, because on its surface it seems mature. Like, oh, he kept his word. You don't give your word to scoundrels. Right. And if it comes out that they're cheaters, or they in some way wronged you renege on your word, because they've already broke the agreement. But the Democratic machine is one of duplicitous civility. I don't know what to call it. It's like, and so I implore people to not get so bogged down with this notion of we got to get along. We have to be civil. We have to be willing to engage in these negotiations and in open discourse. It's like, yeah, we can have open discourse, but I don't believe that all ideas are worthy of consideration at the same level. And I certainly don't believe that of compromise. There is no room in politics for preemptive compromise. And that's the Democrats, that's just their modus operandi. We're going to preemptively compromise. We're going to put things on the table that shouldn't be on the table even before you ask for them. And hopefully our base understands that this is a victory because we're getting along. It's like, isn't getting along so important? Like, this symbolic victory of the Democrats getting along and reaching across the aisle with Republicans, like, that doesn't mean anything to me. Maybe it means something to other people, but like, no, I would prefer, honestly, if Harry Reid hated Mitch McConnell, like had a V in his heart. Like, I would love if Harry Reid came out, you know what? I hate Mitch McConnell. Like, I hope only bad things happen to him. And I'm gonna, to my dying breath, resist him. I don't care. Okay, I think we're gonna call it a night.
We're gonna put a pin in there. We went over a little bit because we started a little late, but Brandon, I wouldn't care. Hilarious. What are your parting words for our friends tonight?
Be like, have an open mind and defend your positions vigorously, and don't be afraid to walk away from negotiations if the person on the other side is being obstinate. Like, you don't meet obstinance with compromise. You meet obstinate with obstinance. And anyone who tells you otherwise, it probably has an agenda. They're probably not as close to your side as you think they are. They're probably close to the other side because they want that compromise. Like, they want to, man, Democrats do suck, right? It's like they're either corrupt or inept, and I can't tell which one sometimes. And that's problematic.
Everybody's problematic. Coming to a podcast review from Kieran Opal and myself. No, seriously. But for real, stay tuned for some mashups with myself and Kieran. Because we keep talking, because we all keep saying that phrase in one way or another, that everybody is problematic, and we've talked about how we as individuals are problematic here. I think we did that on an episode of Politics and Grits, maybe. But thanks everybody for rocking with us. Another edition of the Benjamin Dixon Show, guest hosted by myself and Brandon Sutton.
She and him.
She and
him. Me. Or she and him is the validational.
Her and him. He and her.
No, we should go to neutral pronouns. Zer and Zim.
Zer and Zim. Okay, we can do that. Anyway,
they and them. We're real progressive tonight.
I had to look up Zer and Zim to understand because I had no clue what that was for the longest. But thanks so much again. Question everything, even question us. Like question us. You know, if don't just because somebody says something and it jives what you already believe, or it sounds really good, or just because like somebody might have had a series of tweets or articles previously that were really good. You can't take everything as the gospel as if people are just like, you know, absolutely 100% correct. We come on, we try our best to give you, you know, facts, give you fact-based analysis and, you know, our opinions, which we try to research and make sure we're well informed. But seriously, there's too much going on right now, and we have too many people. We have the whole left wing info wars rising and stuff. Like seriously, like there are people who give out information, misinformation intentionally to discredit rivals or others. It's really getting kind of retarded out here. And that probably wasn't the best word to use. I'm tired and I apologize. It's really getting stupid out here. I'm sorry. My vocabulary isn't the best right now. It's late and I'm
can I have a second last word?
You can have a second last word, but
I never Wait. I think what Anoa is trying to say is be careful who you listen to and trust.
Be careful who you listen to. Yes, exactly. Because I'm just like, I'm so tired from, like, I'm exhausted from DC still. I had a delayed flight, went straight to work. Well, I had like 3 hours of sleep, went to work yesterday, came home, slept, had to spend time with my family still. And and then I'm going to crash. So I'm still so tired from that. We're going to but seriously, be careful who you listen to. Just check everything. Don't rely on other people for the information. Make sure you are double checking it for yourself.
Definitely don't believe anything that sounds like common sense inherently. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, that's just common sense. Like, no, I'm going to look that up. Also, just because someone sounds reasonable and they're cute doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. Look at me. Half of what I said tonight was just factually inaccurate. But you're like, Brandon, look at that.
And on that note, I'm going to shut them down and say good night.
That's not true. Don't listen to Brandon. But good night, everybody. And thank